Welcome to Yelena Talks. Today we have Tim Khadzi, owner of JK Boots, a 22-year-old entrepreneur from Spokane, Washington. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice. Yes.
Okay, can you share a little bit about the family business? How did the enthusiasm start? Tell us a little bit more about the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So family business. So my dad started it back in, so he came to America in 94 and then just took some years to kind of get on his feet. Officially, we started in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And at the time, my parents were working together, and so my mom was a seamstress, so there was a tailoring aspect to the business as well. And then as my brother and I got older, I'd say we took it really seriously and kind of got involved when we got out of school, or we're kind of still in school and getting out of school. So I'd say about 2014, 15 is when it kind of became a little bit more serious. We made a website. My brother did, Will. He was the first one because I was still very young and in school. And he made a website, started working more, and just kind of one thing after another. We started our social media in 2016. And so I would say right there, 14, 15 is kind of when it really took off and started going serious. And then one thing after another, we started traveling, going to shows, selling more boots, made our website, and just kind of after that.
Wow, so you guys are one of the top boot companies in the United States?
I want to say the world, but there's a long way to go.
Okay.
We're still growing, but we're doing really, really well. To give perspective, we've had like exponential growth ever since those years. So it just kind of year after year after year, it just keeps going and blowing up and going further and further. And so I don't know exactly what specific numbers maybe other companies are doing. There are huge companies out there that are made in the USA, like there's ones that you kind of look up to that's like, wow, that's amazing what they've done. Like maybe like Red Wing or Danner or something like that. They're global. So definitely there's aspirations and room to grow, but we're very happy, we're very excited, and we're moving forward.
Nice. So you talked about exponential growth.
Yeah.
How do you guys artistically weave in the art of the beautiful boots you guys have, and with class and durability? I am not surprised you guys are top. Talk to me about how your guys' business just started to, like you said, expand.
Yeah. It's not magic.
No.
Good product,
Okay.
good customer service,
Okay.
and if you do that consistently and you repeat it, people get happy. I would say there's kind of maybe two levels or two sides to the boot world. There's kind of the dressy, fancy, schmancy side, and then there's kind of just the average Joe in a sense who just really wants the best thing he could possibly get on his feet and wants really good service. And both parties want good service, but so for us, we try to stick more to just catering to the average Joe who really just wants the best thing he can put on his feet, and is going to be really happy. It's going to last forever. It's going to be super comfortable. I think Elon Musk says it best. If you have a really great product, if you have really good service, you can't go wrong. So that's kind of where our vision is and focus. It's really simple. We want to be accessible, easy to talk to, easy to order from, easy to buy. Just sometimes people blow it out of proportion and think that there's some kind of potion or a secret formula to success, and there are principles to follow.
Sure.
But ultimately, it's pretty simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about how has your business maybe rebranded or the customer base evolved? I mean, did you guys from the get-go know what you were doing, or is this a process of discovery?
Good question. That's a good question. Definitely a process of discovery. I mean, so ultimately, we're always growing and trying to get better.
Sure.
So, we started out, I think, like a lot of boot companies, with a particular customer base, where it was like, hey, we're really known in this field or area because this friend told his friend, and it's kind of similar careers. But then as you grow, you have different products, you start making different kinds of boots, and you just kind of start spreading out to this industry, then this industry, then that industry. And so growth for us came and is coming through just consistently getting the word out,
Sure.
consistently having really good products, in improving on your products, not just having the same thing always all the time, and just repeating that, and then always getting smarter and sharper with service. However you can be faster, better, easier, more accessible, make the experience as great as possible for the customer, and it just kind of naturally goes on its own. At first we were in kind of specific trades and industries, but just over time it's really just blown up. and honestly, it's from A to Z.
Okay, so I've heard recently that Spokane, Washington is the capital of boots.
That's what people say. There are a few companies here. Hard to say the specific reason for that. A few of them are connected. We're not really connected to any of them.
Okay.
My dad was a bootmaker long before he came to America.
Wow.
So he always had kind of that vision and dream. So yeah, they say that. But I mean, there's a lot of great companies. I mean, so to give you an example, the biggest ones in America, let's just say, actually are in Minnesota, Portland, and on the East Coast. So this little hub in Spokane is kind of small compared to really the big fish out there.
So if you were to use maybe one quality or one adjective, one trait that makes your guys' company stand out and be different from competitors, what is it?
It's a good question. I think, we have a lot of respect for people that are in our industry.
Okay.
So like we have this policy in our company, not even a policy, but just this understanding in our culture. We are super positive and respectful to competition, and so we never say negative things ever.
Wow.
For us, I think, I'm very serious about that.
Sure.
Even from our production guys to our sales guys to even just administrative staff, whatever, we just consistently across the board, we don't do that. And that's good. I like being positive and having good relationships with other people in the industry. But I think what stands out with us, if I had to pick one thing, I think it's our leadership, and that we're willing to be flexible and change and be smart and take risks and have faith and have really big aspirations and dreams and not be too afraid of any kind of challenge. You could say that, that's kind of a generic response, but I do think that's what sets us apart, because I'm so willing to try new things and think outside of the box and take on challenges.
So speaking of outside of the box, can you tell me a story, something maybe your family or you specifically did with a product to maybe help a customer? I don't know, give me a story that matches what you said.
Yeah. Our industry is kind of like old school, quote unquote, meaning that it's older techniques for making boots. It's very classic, it's timeless, heavy leather, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I think with the ability, and I think before, even if you just go back, let's just say all boot companies in general, specifically for this industry, it would take a while to get a pair of boots. You need to go see someone, it's in person, all this stuff. What we've been able to do, and I think it's also just because of technology and time, is someone can live 3,000 miles away and get a pair of boots and be happy with the way they fit and feel and get all their options and stuff like that. So I think that's a good example of that. And obviously we did that through the website, internet, other technology, but we were willing to remold and change and be flexible and figure out ways to bend to that style of business. And it's a win-win for everybody, because then people that actually live on different parts of the world can get boots, and we're not forcing everyone to, hey, you need to physically be here, and you need to be in this room, otherwise we won't service you. So I'd say that's a good example. Yeah.
So I follow your guys' social media a little bit, and there's a really cool post I wanted to have you talk about.
Yeah.
There was a smaller boot. There was a wooden foot model.
Okay.
Can you tell me? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Tell me more. I don't know what you're talking about.
It was like a veteran, I think.
Oh yeah, cut in half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had this guy. Actually, not only on one occasion. There's a few of them, but we had this particular guy.
Wow.
He was a veteran, and he lost half of his foot.
Okay.
And so he literally came in with half his foot missing. It's crazy. This is a long time ago, and my dad took on the challenge and did it for him when kind of nobody else really wanted to.
Wow.
And so that was pretty cool. And it was, it was a big deal, because you have to rework all of the patterns, you have to rework the mold, you have to do all that stuff. And it was just a lot of work and risk. And my dad was kind of the one that really pioneered that and just took on the challenge. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And that guy ended up getting like 2 or 3 pairs because there's nothing else that he could wear. So that was cool. And that felt good to do that and help people. And we hear a lot of stories like that about, and not even necessarily if it's something custom or crazy, but just because we build such a good product and people are so happy, I've gotten emails before that are 2 or 3 paragraphs long, and people are like just so happy with what they have.
Sure.
They make comments like, before I wasn't able to stand and work for 12 or 14 hours a day. Now I can.
Wow.
Like, that's so amazing. Thank you. Or we hear all the time, my boots used to wear out in 3 or 4 or 5 months. Now they last for years. This is so amazing. Like, thank you. And so we really do have a great product, and it's just really cool to hear that. Yeah.
So you guys really are true at heart of what it means to customize boots.
In essence, yes. I mean, there are limits to the customization of what's possible.
Yeah.
But the idea with, like, hey, we have different models, different products, different variations. Yeah, absolutely. We want to be able to, meet people's needs that are on all kinds of different jobs.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you've talked a lot about what family business is like, and I kind of want to know a little bit the heart of one of the owners, you.
Yeah.
So a common thing with family business is, we're all in business, it's family, that's, it's what we do, it's what we know. At what point do you feel like this became your personal mission and your business?
It's a great question. Probably since I was very young and got right into it right away. So it all started because, so this is a good question. And if anyone is in a family business, they should hear this.
Yes.
Also, I hope that I'm a good representation of my family here now.
I hope so too.
Anyone who's in family business should hear this. So if you're if you're together, not because you're family, but because you're in business, then it's all wrong and you should stop. You should be together because you're a family and because you love each other first. And business is just a cherry on top. If you try to do it the first way, where we're only in relationship with each other because of business, or in other words, money, then at the first sign or alarm of that money stopping or being less, or someone taking more than I got, it will all fall apart. The foundations of a relationship just based on the transactional amount of dollars, and I'm speaking specifically to family businesses. I'm sure with partnerships it's different. It's like, hey, both of you guys put a certain amount of money into a business, that's different. With family, because typically it starts out as small mom and pop shops, and they kind of build it together, blood, sweat, tears, no one's tracking time type deal, So if the only thing that's keeping you together is the business, then that relationship is very poor and weak, and on a weak foundation. It's on sand. And at the first storm, or quote unquote rough season in the business, it'll probably fall apart. And it just leads to, broken relationship, anger, frustration, all this stuff. But if you're built first on the foundation of trust, love, honor, where the relationship is you just want to be together because you just want to be together, then the business side becomes great, because then it's fun, it's exciting, and it's a risk that everyone's taking together for each other, not necessarily just for themselves to just be there because there's a business in money. So for anyone in a family business, I would check your heart first, and make sure that the people that you're in relationship with, you're in relationship with them because you genuinely want to be in relationship with them and you genuinely love them. If there was no business, would you guys still get together for dinner? And if the answer to that question is no, then don't get in business. But if you guys genuinely want to be together, you genuinely make time and pursue each other, brothers and sisters, parents, all these things. If there's the natural pursuing of relationship with each other, then business actually becomes really amazing. Because what closer partner would you have? And this is, kind of a universal relationship principle, you could say. But I've just seen it really true in our own personal experience.
So blood and sweat unites the JK Brotherhood, literally.
Literally, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not easy to build a company, but it's incredibly rewarding, especially when you have rock solid people that you can lean on. And it's not just for boots, or this is industry wide. This is just business principles in general, and just I think life principles in general. If you want to see and test your faith, your hope, your relationship with God, what you believe about yourself, what you believe about God, what you believe about life, what you believe about family, do it, because it'll test you, and it'll really, you're forged in fire. I used to not really understand what that meant, until doing this, but ultimately, we are definitely forged in fire, and iron sharpens iron, and just get stronger and you get better. And again, that comes back to, I think that if it starts on the basis of we're together and we love each other because we love each other and we're family, not just because of business. If it's the former, then it's bad. It's ugly. It's uncomfortable. It's hard. And again, I think that applies for relationships, across the board, but specifically in family businesses, it's really true too. Also, trust. We just mentioned that one too. Like if there's a level of trust that exists pre-business, then it only increases post-business. It's not like well, we weren't that close before, so maybe in doing business together we'll get closer. Yeah. That's not true. That you have to have that trust getting started and going, and if it's in a good place, it just gets better as you move on. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Do you then categorize yourself as a entrepreneur?
Okay.
Do you? I mean, that word is kind of tossed around back and forth.
Do I categorize myself as an entrepreneur?
I mean, business owner, sure, but entrepreneur.
I'll let people categorize me for what they think I should be categorized for. What I want to be categorized for is a great man who his visions and dreams came to fruition. And that's the definition of success, in my opinion. So if whatever dreams and visions I have, if they come to fruition, I consider that greatness. And so I want to be categorized as a great man, a great father, a great husband, a great son, and a great leader. Whether entrepreneurs in there, great.
Okay.
If not, then I'm just as fine with that.
Wow. Yeah. And what traits are necessary for this type of person to succeed?
Yeah, learning those myself. So this is ultimately all talk and way easier said than done. But I'll just say it. What I've learned in my own years. I think that the traits that a great man carry. I think the first thing, because this is what I'm walking through personally, I think in my life, is the ability to control your emotions. So I think the ability to not be, burdened by like worry or fear or stress or even frustration and annoyance, but to be able to control those emotions and channel them correctly. So like if there's a problem, the first response is what's the solution, as opposed to getting angry at the problem, vetting at the problem, pouring out your emotions at the problem, and then coming to a solution. You should just cut the middle part out and just immediately be like stone and just kind of like, okay, there's an issue, let's attack it. What's the solution? That's something that I learned personally, and I'm learning right now too. Another characteristic or trait that I would say is this idea with, I'll just throw kind of a couple words together, like vision, hope, and what's possible, like vision, hope, faith, what's possible. A lot of people, they shoot themselves in the foot before they even start the race because they just think, oh, well, that's not doable, that's not possible. They don't think big enough. And so ultimately, if you can't build a big enough sandbox in your mind, then how can you build, if you can't build a big sandbox, you won't build a big castle. If you build a small sandbox, you'll build a small castle. So, I think that's a good place to start, if you want to be a great person and be successful. And this is so good. This is wisdom just pulling out. I'm so impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you want to be a good and successful person, I think that you have to have a big sandbox in the things that you're willing to believe for. Okay. Because if you start out where you're just like, oh, well, I don't need that. That's too crazy. Who does that, Yeah. Then it's like, well, then you're shooting yourself in the foot before the race. Okay. And so ultimately, that's what I think a place where I always push myself to is like, well, why not this? Why can't we do that? Why isn't that possible? Okay. And instead of figuring out the reasons why it's not possible, figure out the ways to make it possible. Like if you have a number goal in your head, and let's just say it's outlandish. Let's say there's a number, for someone, $10 million is like crazy. For someone, let's say Elon Musk, it's pocket change, right? So, okay, whatever number is in your mind that's just like outlandishly so bizarre and far away. Okay, instead of figuring out all the reasons why it's so far away, so let's start figuring out, okay, what could I do to make it get closer? Absolutely. What would that look like? What would that feel like? What would that sound like? And start taking steps towards that. One more thing that just came to mind that I want to add is the ability to walk in humility and receive from people that are greater and further along than you. Truth. Also, the ability to learn from even people that are maybe running a similar race as you are. So the Bible says that the Lord opposes the proud but favors the humble.
Yep.
And it says that a few times. And so ultimately, I want to be able to, I'm always like asking the Lord and like, God, open my eyes, help me out, give me wisdom, like Holy Spirit, open my eyes, give me revelation. First of all, what is humility?
Yeah.
What does that even look like? How do I practice that? And what do I need to do for that to be real in my life? Okay. Because I believe that. I've seen that principle where the Lord opposes the proud and favors the humble. And so, yeah, I believe that's true. And ultimately, also, whenever I meet great people that I admire and respect, they're very humble people. I have yet to meet the classic Hollywood, movie-style douchebag who's like super rich and famous and is just like this huge jerk to everyone. I have yet to meet that person. Not that they don't exist. I'm not saying that. But usually, for in my short life, all the people that I've met that are very wealthy or successful or I would consider great are extremely humble people. And so that's a huge sign to me that says, hey, that principle is probably really true.
I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you talked about. That's a Bible verse I've thought about many times. And when we were little, we just memorized it. And then I wanted to figure out, like, what does that really mean? So in my first business, I am a counselor, licensed mental health counselor, and I've had 10 plus experience of working with clients. And I've realized when a person has a heart of humility, they are open, they are teachable, they will listen, and they believe that God can use this person to, pour wisdom into them. When you open that up, you attract blessing, riches, whatever that looks like, because you are, moldable and teachable. And I've realized if a person has a heart just filled with pride, stone, it doesn't matter how much wisdom, wealth, resources you want to give that person, if they're closed up and locked up, it's not possible. Exactly. It's not possible to receive.
Yeah, and you can't really help somebody in that position either. If someone, it's kind of like, if your breath smells, this is maybe a dumb analogy, but if your breath smells, the only way you can know is if someone tells you, and so to speak, right? Yeah. So I think it's the same way kind of with like pride and arrogance. It's really hard to talk to someone and explain that to somebody. And so usually if someone's struggling in that area big time and someone tells them and criticizes it, the first response is usually defense and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of why the Lord, like, God can do anything, obviously. Yeah. And he's, but the reason I think that when it comes to people who struggle with pride and arrogance is because literally you won't allow the Lord to do anything. Yeah. And ultimately, the Lord, I think, respects people's, sovereignty, quote unquote, so to speak, And so it's like He's not going to force Himself on somebody. And so I think that's why it says opposes the proud and favors the humble. Because if they're proud, you can't really do anything, And so
it repels.
Yeah. So also walking in humility, at least trying to. I've been very favored and fortunate to just meet great people and just kind of sit at their feet and learn and listen. And I think that's impacted my life hugely, including business.
Okay, so a couple questions from what you've said.
Yeah.
You talked about expanding your sandbox, and I do believe there's a level of faith where you see something and you have to believe it's going to happen because then you will only look for solutions for that path, right? Yes. So question number one, what helps you expand your box with every year, right? Or every milestone of development? And then the other one you talked about, you've had inspirational, positive teachers, mentors that who maybe helped you do that or get there. Talk to me a little bit about that. Yeah,
good question. And it doesn't only apply to business. I think it applies to life in general. So let's talk from that perspective of just life in general because it's so many things. So I would say the first one that comes to mind is just people in general that are further along than I am. So I have a particular person in my life who's also a very close friend and a mentor. And I'm not related to them. Okay. And they kind of just, I think, came into my life just kind of by chance, and I think it was God. Love this man very much, honor this man very much, close friend with this man, he's so great. And when I think about my life, what kind of life I would like to have at his age or just in general, I think about his life. Okay. And I'm like, I want that life.
Okay.
I want what he has. I want his level of happiness and joy. I want, he's married, he has children. I want that. Okay. Successful financially. I want that. Yeah. Seems to just be successful in everything that he puts his hands to. I want that. So now ultimately, okay, if I'm humble, what I'll do is I'll see this, and I'll be like, what? I feel like my hair is messed up again. Is it messed up? If I'm humble, I'll see this, and I'll say, okay, I'll sit at their feet, and I'll receive the anointing that they have. I'll honor them through honor. Okay. If I'm arrogant, I'll be filled with jealousy and envy this person and repel them. Yeah. So whenever I meet someone that's like, wow, like you are amazing, you're better than me, that takes a level of humility, takes a level of respect. Self-assessment. Yeah. And now I have to honor this person. What is honor? Honor is humility in action. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know what humility is, you can't really honor somebody. So you first should figure out what humility is, and then you can honor people. Honor is humility in action. So I think it can look like things as practical as like opening the door for somebody. Honestly, things as little as that. Giving up your seat. Yeah.
Bringing you an almond croissant after this.
There you go. That's very nice. There you go. That's very nice. Yeah. Giving up your seat, shutting up and listening.
Yeah.
Speaking of this person in always a high positive manner.
Sure.
Like whatever humility in action might look like to you, and you display that to this person. I think there's like a universal spiritual principle, whatever you call it. Like when you start to do that, I'll just speak in terms of like spiritual terms, that believers would understand. Yeah. If you begin to do that, I believe that the anointing that's on that person's life, whether it was on there from birth or was gathered over time, will actually begin to flow over you. There's a particular verse in the scripture that says that this is maybe a little too deep, but that the oil from Aaron's head flows down his head and then down his beard and over,
I can see why.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the idea there is it was the anointing oil. The idea there and the principle there that people bring up is that anointing flows from the top down. So if you want to get it, you have to go low.
Yeah, I could see that. So
you asked me how I stretch my sandbox?
Yeah.
That's kind of the first way, is through seeing what other people are like. Wow, I want your life. The second way, I think personally, how I stretch my sandbox, in general, I'm just a guy that has a lot of faith and I like to do new things and stuff like that. So I think it's a little bit easier for me personally. Okay. But I still have to challenge myself. And the way that I challenge myself is I just think like, okay, what's a practical example? Let's say I want to, in my own business, let's say I want to produce a certain amount of boots a day or a year, whatever that number might be. Let's just say it's outlandish, like it's so crazy and far away. And this number, it's huge, it's big, it's a challenge. Okay, how would I do that? What would that look like? I'll pull out a piece of paper. Okay, if this amount of people, this amount of this, this amount of this, this amount of this, okay, that's what I have now. Okay, now what if we multiply that by 10 or by 20? Okay, what would that look like? How could I visualize that? That would be this many guys here in this area, this many guys here in this area. Okay, then if there's that many guys, then they need this. Well, they might need that. Okay, well, how do they talk to each other? And like every time I ask a question, answer it, then I'm kind of like breaking out the sandbox. Very
practical steps.
Super practical. Just start envisioning what you, set a goal, start envisioning what it would look like and what it would take to get there. I think it's more simple than people make it.
Okay. Yeah. A couple more questions as we start to wrap up. There might be a part 2. I sense it.
Okay, that's fine.
So spiritual principles for
spiritual principles.
business development.
Sure.
What are some topics you like to study then?
Good question.
I mean, if we're talking about, I think we're the common denominator of our personal and professional growth. So if you're studying, we talked about humility and receiving. Yeah. What's your kind of like your go-to listen? If you're driving and you're turning on a podcast or YouTube, what are you listening to? Yeah,
so I listen a lot to Chris Valentin from Bethel.
Okay.
He has a lot of good teaching just on, even though he's a pastor, quote unquote, so to speak, it's good life principles on these topics of humility, honor. He speaks a lot on that. I like to listen to him a lot. I also really like to listen to this guy from a long time ago. He's dead now. His name is Napoleon Hill. He was a mentee of Andrew Carnegie and like that, whole community way back in the day. So he has a lot of stuff. He's got a few books. I just sometimes will turn it on. I like to listen to it. He doesn't profess to be necessarily a believer, or maybe he has before that I don't know of. But a lot of principles that he talks about are honestly just like kingdom principles, and so I like it. But it's like in the practical, real world. So I listen to him a lot too. And I also just in general study this idea of like what is humility, what is honor, what does that look like, what are God's promises, how does that look like in my life. So definitely study that. And in general, I'm just a big fan of Elon Musk.
Okay.
So I follow him on Twitter.
Okay.
I follow him everywhere. I listen to his TED Talks. I like him. I want to be like him.
Okay.
You know, I think he's one. If he's not the only man or one of the only few men, I think that has started 3 over $1 billion companies.
Yep.
That's amazing. You know, what a guy. My dream would be to meet him. Also, Donald Trump.
Oh.
Very big fan.
Yeah.
Wonderful man. Super successful. Financial world, family world, and political world.
Yeah.
You know, his sons are involved with him in business. His daughter was involved with him in the White House. He was president. You know, I think a great president. So, yeah, I listened to him. I've listened to some of his stuff previously. There's another guy named David Rubenstein, who is himself a billionaire, and now he's a philanthropist. And he has this forum where he will invite other billionaires on, and they just do what we're doing now. So from guys like Donald Trump to Jeff Bezos to, Ted Turner, whatever. And so sometimes like I'll turn that on and just like listen to them talk, because I want to know, what does a person on that caliber, what do they talk like, what do they think like?
Yeah.
So I can be that way too.
Sure. What's something that maybe when you were little you were made fun of, but now super hugely benefits you as an entrepreneur? Right? We all have something that maybe at the time didn't make sense, but then later on that was something God put into you and now you do it well.
My impatience. So my 3rd grade teacher actually used to call me Mr. Impatient. Yeah. Which I'm not scarred by that or something. It's not traumatic for me. But it's funny because I was always like, let's go, go, go. Like, why are we taking so long to learn this lesson, or whatever it was. And so I was always kind of like, let's just go, go, go. And she would always like say, and my classmates too, like, Tim, like, relax, or whatever. And I was like, guys, this is easy. Like, we can learn this. Like, this is like, let's move on. So I was always kind of like that way. Now I think it's a big benefit because I'm just kind of always like, let's try this, let's do this, let's go, 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 da-da-da-da, So I like to take risks and jump, and I think that's a huge good thing. It can be negative at times too. That's why it's good to have a partnership or a relationship like a brother or business partner that can kind of be the other side of the coin and can kind of help you out and be like, hey, actually relax, here's why. And vice versa, or if this person's pausing, I can come in and be like, hey, no, let's go, whatever. So I would say that's a good question. I would say that's something that comes to mind. Other than that, I was super charismatic as a child and in school. I always had friends. I always was very social. I always went to after-curricular activities. I was in clubs. I played sports. So I had a really good, social childhood.
You're definitely social, charismatic, easygoing, intelligent.
They try to be. Thank you.
Okay, so how do we know each other?
We know each other from church.
Okay.
Because when I was like yay high, you knew me, and you were a little older than me, and you were in a generation ahead of me, and
whole generation.
Yeah, like youth, like youth generation, because youth is only like 3 or 4 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we played in worship teams a lot together over the years. Other than that, I don't think we served together, and now we go to church together again.
Again,
and serve
same
again
band.
in the same band.
Have our own partnership going.
Yeah, we do. Look at that.
Nice.
Life is funny like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final, but one of the most important questions.
Yeah.
What's your favorite boots from JK Boots?
My favorite model is probably our forefront model. I wear those the most. I have like 3 pairs, just because I like the way they look and feel. And the sole on there is called a White Christie sole. It's really nice. That one's my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is Tim Khadzi from JK Boots. Thank you so much for coming to Yelena Talks. You are my first guest, and you are like the top person on my list.
Thank you.
So I hope maybe we can do a part 2, but definitely thank you for your thoughts
You're
and
welcome.
sharing your wealth.
I appreciate that. Yeah, my pleasure.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode on Yelena Talks, where I interview entrepreneurs and people who are developing themselves and their businesses. Tune in for next time for another episode, and comment, drop some likes, fires, and let me know what else you like to see in the future.